thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura, and today I'm going to tier rank the 77 books that I read this year. And a lot of these books I talk about in depth in a book versus movie video, because most of these, that's the reason why I read them, is to make a book versus movie video for it. And so yeah, as I rank these books, I will also sort of be looking back at 2024 and the various videos I have made, and maybe comment on how I think that particular book versus movie turned out, and maybe do a bit of self-promoting in that respect. But we have 77 books to get through, so let's just get right to it. And for the rankings, I chose the theme of friendship, relationships. So top tier is BFF, 4-star books are close friend, then we have acquaintance, stranger is 2-star books, and enemy is the bottom level tier. I don't know how many books I'll have an enemy. I feel like I didn't read that many bad books this year, but I guess we will see. So first up, this is the most recent book I read, 100 Years of Solitude. Easy, BFF. This book was fantastic. It lived up to the hype, and the TV show is amazing. As of right now, the TV show hasn't even made it into the top 10 Netflix shows right now. Like on Netflix, it's not even in the top 10, which is unfortunate because the show is so good. If you have not yet watched it, give it a shot. I do not think you will be disappointed, especially if you're a fan of the book. They have done such an amazing job adapting this. And yeah, the book is incredible. It also is the type of book that is up my alley. Like I say this in the video, but I love stories about families and generations and familial cycles we get stuck in despite our attempts to break out of it, you know? So anyway, I loved this book, BFF. And then we have Little Women. I like this a lot. I'm putting it in close friend. I really liked the videos I made for this. I made 2 going over the different adaptations. So if you have not yet watched them, you definitely should. Because even though I'm not putting this in the top tier, there was so much to get into with this book, and I really did love it. And then the movies, most of the movies are all so good too, especially the 90s one as well as the Greta Gerwig one are just incredible. And I saw a YouTuber call this a romance book, and I feel like, not that, you know, there's nothing wrong with romance, but I feel like you're kind of selling it short when you just say Little Women is a romance, because it is so much more than that. And it's a book that men and women alike should read and would enjoy. Life of Pi. This one I didn't particularly like. Stranger might seem too low. I also read this like in January, so my memory of it isn't quite as clear, but I remember being disappointed with it and not liking it too much. I think I chose the movie over the book in that video. The movie has the visuals going for it, which of course helps. But the author, he also kind of comes across sort of condescending in the way he writes this. So Stranger might seem low, but that's where I'm going to put it. And then A Prayer for Owen Meany. This book is also fantastic. Pretty sure I gave that 5 stars. That's a video that didn't get a ton of views. I don't think John Irving, he's a relatively well-known author, but yeah, that video has not gotten too many views, but regardless, I'm so happy I read that book. It was incredible. This was a recommendation from a subscriber, and yeah, it's a great book. The Devil Wears Prada. This book, maybe I would put at the top of Stranger, because yeah, this one, she came across so petty at times, and I definitely preferred the movie. So yeah, I'm putting it in Stranger. The Great Train Robbery, I liked a lot. I'm putting that in close friend. This is a Michael Crichton book. And again, my book versus movie for this, I think it turned out really well, and yet it has gotten so few views. It's like 500 views right now. And I think it's just because not many people know of the book or movie, despite the fact that it was written by Michael Crichton, and then he also directed the movie. And the movie has Donald Sutherland and Sean Connery and is a lot of fun. And yeah, I just learned so much while reading this book. Even though it's a fictionalized story of a true event, you just learned so much about Victorian England, and it was just fascinating and sometimes disturbing. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. And again, the movie is a lot of fun too. And next up, this is a Stephen King book. I think this is Carrie, although it's hard to tell. I might need to look through Goodreads and see what that is. Okay, yeah, that's Carrie. Okay, yeah, so Carrie, I would give 4 stars. I enjoyed this one, but it's, you know, definitely not like my favorite Stephen King. So I would put it on close friend. Christine, I'll put this one on acquaintance. I think the book I gave like 3.5 stars. So I did enjoy it quite a bit, but it would be acquaintance level. My book versus movie for this comes out next week, so stay tuned. And then we have another Stephen King, The Dead Zone. I think I like this one better than Carrie. Yeah, this one I liked a lot. I've said this many times at this point, but if you like 11/22/63, which is, a lot of people's one of their favorite Stephen King books, you should read The Dead Zone, because they have a lot in common, like the structure of these two books, and they're not horror necessarily. Like they might have some supernatural elements and more of a thriller, but it's nothing like horrific in this book. So yeah, I really like this one, and I'm putting it in close friend. The Black Dahlia, I also really liked. I do try to organize them within the tiers, but this is already tough. Like, I guess this one should go lower. And Little Women, I guess I'll keep Little Women at the top for now. But yeah, I've read 2 James Ellroy books so far, this and LA Confidential, and I've loved both. LA Confidential was kind of like culture shock, but for a book. Culture shock isn't the right word. It was just kind of shocking, some of the things that were written in LA Confidential, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is disturbing. And yet when all was said and done, I was like, wow, that book was incredible. And the way he crafts his stories, like it was just so impressive. And then yeah, I really like The Black Dahlia as well. And then Salem's Lot. Man, we are going to have a lot of books in close friend, because I think I would definitely put this in close friend as well. Where in here? Did I like it better than The Dead Zone? I mean, this is pretty loose, the order within the rankings. So this definitely isn't like concrete, my final choice on how these books should be, of course, because tomorrow I could feel like they should be rearranged. But anyway, I guess I will keep Salem's Lot above The Dead Zone. I really did like The Great Train Robbery, though. I won't overthink it too much. I'll just leave them as they are. Next up, Practical Magic. This one was just okay. I almost would say I like The Devil Wears Prada more than the book Practical Magic. The movie I like much better than the book. But yeah, this was a fun one to cover, though, and especially the movie. The movie is a lot of fun, and Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock, they're just incredible and beautiful, and I loved them in that movie, and so much more supernatural and witchcraft stuff going on in the movie than we had in the book, which has very little supernatural things happening. And we also focus a lot on the daughters, which I was not as interested in, so I like that the movie just focuses on the 2 older sisters. And then Dennis Lehane, A Drink Before the War. I liked this one a lot too. I will put it here. So this was the first book he ever wrote, if I remember correctly. But the reason I read this is because eventually I want to do a book versus movie for Gone Baby Gone, but Gone Baby Gone is like the 4th book in the Mackenzie and Gennaro collection of stories by Dennis Lehane. So this is the first book introducing these 2, they're not detectives, they're like some sort of investigators. And so yeah, so before I cover Gone Baby Gone, I would like to read all of the 3 previous books leading up to that one. And so I read the first one. I still have 3 more to go. But yeah, so at some point, I will do Gone Baby Gone once I make time to read those other books. But yeah, this one I really liked a lot. And when you think about how this was his first ever book, it definitely isn't perfect by any means, but if I read this when it came out, I definitely would have been like, wow, like this guy is talented and he's going places, and I want to keep an eye on the books he releases in the future, because this was impressive for a debut novel. And then In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash. This one, this is the basis for A Christmas Story. My video for that just came out. And this book, it's tough because he is an entertaining storyteller, and yet I think I'm going to put it in Stranger, because it's not one I would highly recommend to people, and it's not one I would ever reread. I would just rewatch A Christmas Story rather than read this book. But that's not to say he isn't a good storyteller, because I do love his writing style, and that really comes through in the movie. But yeah, the book itself, and some stories were just more interesting than others because it's a collection of short stories. So yeah, I'll put it in Stranger. Although I would probably put it behind The Devil Wears Prada, I guess. Then we have Wicked. I'm gonna put this in Stranger as well. My biggest issue with this book is that it was just kind of boring and I was not engaged in the story. Part of that, very subjective. All of this is subjective, of course, but I just have a hard time reading fantasy, and I had not anticipated this to be as as fantasy as it was. I thought it would just, I mean, The Wizard of Oz I liked, and that one is fantasy, but it doesn't feel like heavy fantasy. I would be reading, and then suddenly I would be like, whoa, like I've been thinking about something else. Like, what did I even just read right now, you know? And so that happened so much while I read this book because I just was not engaged and not particularly interested in the story. However, fans of the book, there are some like diehard fans who love this series. So if you like fantasy, give it a shot. Just be aware that it is very different from the musical. If you go into it wanting the story from the musical, you will be disappointed. So just realize that the book is very much its own thing. And then Red Dragon. This is the first book in the Hannibal Lecter series, and I loved it. Did I love it more than The Dead Zone? Which it's funny because the writing, Thomas Harris's writing, was reminding me of Stephen King in a lot of ways. But I guess I'll just keep it where it is. But yeah, that book was so good. And then A Princess Diaries. This book was just okay, but I mean, it's aimed towards, you know, like 12-year-old girls, essentially girls in their early teens. And so I'm just not the target audience. If I read this when I was younger, I probably would have liked it more. But as of right now, it was fine, but it definitely wasn't my personal preference. But yeah, again, very subjective. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I really, really liked this book. I don't remember. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that seems so high, but I really liked this book. I have a hard time sometimes with books that are narrated from the perspective of a child. And yet it's like an omniscient narrator, third-person narrator. And yet the way the child is written, he just felt so real and he was just so adorable and I felt so connected to him. And then the ending was just so sad. And yeah, I really liked this book and I definitely preferred it over the movie. Twilight. Yeah, this one again. Oh, I'll put it there, maybe lower. This one, again, my biggest issue is that it was just kind of boring. And I just wanted it to hurry and be done because it was longer than it should have been. And then, of course, the characters are just, I just was not rooting for Bella and Edward. So I get into it much more in that video. And I do think that video turned out really well, even though I'm being so critical of the book. But yeah, anyway, that's going in Stranger. Interview with the Vampire. I liked this one a lot. Maybe I'll put it right there. And yeah, I have 3 videos relating to Interview with the Vampire because I covered the 90s movie. And then I have a video for season 1 of the show and then another video for season 2 of the show. And I am so excited to cover the Vampire Lestat next year. I am probably going to cover less TV shows next year because they took up so much of my time because I did quite a few series this year. So next year I'm going to limit that. But the Vampire Lestat will definitely be an exception because I am for sure going to cover that. And then this is Son of Rosemary. I mean, I liked this book for the most part. And through most of this book, it was going to be a 3-star book because like it was fine. I liked it. It is the sequel to Rosemary's Baby. But then the ending, they just totally ruined the whole story with the ending. I hated it. And so that just bumps everything down. And I will just talk about the ending right now, so I'm going to get into spoilers for Son of Rosemary. But so we go into the future when her son is now like in his 30s. I think he's 33. And she has woken up from a coma. And we realize that when her son, Andy, I believe is his name. So when he was like, I don't know, like 4 or something, the coven put her into a coma. And so she wakes up when her son is now in the 30s and the world loves him. He's not a politician, but he is just this figure promoting kindness and unity. And so everybody sees him as like just the perfect person. And so she instantly becomes famous when the mother of this famous guy suddenly wakes up from her coma. And so she's going on making these TV appearances and things. And then she gets to know her son and he seems like he truly is a good person. And he tells her how like, you know, he had to be part of these different rituals as he was raised by the Castevets and everybody, but he doesn't like identify with that group and he knows who his father is, but he's like, I don't want to be part of that at all. And he does have like in the book, he has the eyes, but he also has like weird like hoof hands and like horns, but he can use powers he has to hide those. And so, yeah, she's getting to know him and things are going well, but then there's a couple times where they have this sexual tension and he tries to make a move on her, and she is just like, oh, like, this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening. And then she also gets close to this bodyguard guy he has. And it's all building up toward this event they're having on New Year's where like everybody around the world is going to light this candle, and it's going to be a moment of unification for the entire world. However, we find out like this moment of lighting the candles is going to cause something bad to happen. I forget what exactly. And also this bodyguard guy that Rosemary has been getting close to and is like getting almost romantic with, we find out that that is the devil in disguise, making sure things go as planned. And Andy is also killed, if I recall. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's killed in kind of a graphic way. But basically what then ends up happening is that Rosemary wakes up. This was all a dream. Not only that, she wakes up in the arms of Guy, her husband. And not only was Son of Rosemary all a dream, but everything from Rosemary's baby was a dream. So she wakes up and none of that actually happened. So Ira Levin basically unwrites everything, being like, oh, none of it happened. It was just all a dream. And like, if he made just Son of Rosemary all a dream, like fine, but the fact that he made Rosemary's baby part of this dream she was having, I hated that. So that just ruined the book, and again, like it was fine. I didn't love it, but it was fine up until then. But yeah, that ending ruined it. And then Mildred Pierce. So I liked this a lot. I mean, maybe Black Dahlia is too high. Maybe I'll put it down there. I don't know. But Mildred Pierce, this is one, I covered it a couple months ago, so it's fairly recent still. But this is one I find myself thinking back on a lot. So yeah, I really loved this book and I would highly recommend it. Under the Skin, man, I have so many in Close Friend, but Under the Skin I liked a lot too. Yeah, this one, very, very different from the movie. Like they have similar themes and yet there are a lot of differences between the two. But yeah, I loved the book and I really liked the movie as well. You should definitely check out that video if you have not already. And then we have Double Indemnity, another James M. Cain. I liked this one a lot, but I think I would put it on the bottom of Close Friend. I feel like I need to go through these faster because I'm taking too long talking about these. Big Fish. This one was fine. What is this doing up here? This was supposed to be down here. Big Fish. Yeah, I enjoyed that. That would be an acquaintance. And then what is this? Oh, this is Washington Square. So yeah, this is the basis for The Heiress. I really liked this one too. I mean, I like The Heiress better, but yeah, this one is really good. I'll stick it there. Oh, Into the Cut. This one was okay. Yeah, I'll put that one also an acquaintance. This one is very like Gillian Flynn-esque. And then the movie has Meg Ryan and Mark Ruffalo. So yeah, Ordinary People. Right? I think that's what that is. Some of these are so hard to see, but Ordinary People is fantastic. So yeah, that's going in BFF. Bridget Jones's Diary. This cover is horrible. It's so ugly and weird looking, but I enjoy the first Bridget Jones. Both book and movie are a lot of fun, so I put that in acquaintance. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This one I really liked. And for that video, I watched the movie from the 50s as well as the one from the 70s. And the book and the movies are all so good. I think I chose the 70s movie, though, as my ultimate favorite. So yeah, you should watch that video if you have not already. I filmed it while we were in Boston, so you can see like Boston behind me in that one. And then Erasure. This is the basis for American Fiction. I think, yeah, I would put this in Close Friend. I read a lot of good books this year, as you can see. So a lot of ones that weren't 5 stars, but were still really good. So yeah, I would stick this in here. Maybe after Body Snatchers, but before Interview with a Vampire. And now this one, man, I cannot tell what book that is. Oh, that's Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah, this one was okay. Yeah, it was fine. Planet of the Apes, I liked this one a lot. I don't think I would put it in 4 stars. I would put it pretty high though. So I'll put it at the top of acquaintance, I guess. Maybe below Christine though. But yeah, that was a good one. Queen Bees and Wannabes. This one I also really liked, and I'm putting it up here. This one is actually a self-help book on how to deal with teenage girls. Basically, it is the basis for Mean Girls, which I covered in January. So I love Mean Girls. And then this book, I was surprised how much I liked it because I don't have any teen girls. I don't have any kids at all. I am around my nieces, and then just in other social settings, I'm around teen girls. And then also just because I myself was once a teen girl, I thought it was really interesting to read what she had to say. And yeah, I was surprisingly impressed with this book, and I would highly recommend it if you are around teen girls in any capacity. And then I read It this year by Stephen King, and this would definitely go high up there. Did I like it better than Salem's Lot? Probably. Oh man. Again, these rankings within the tiers, like Boy in the Striped Pajamas probably doesn't deserve to be that high now that I think about it. And then right here, so this is Strangers, but it is the basis for All of Us Strangers. And the movie definitely put its own spin on the story, and the director personalized it a lot, which I actually loved. And so I did prefer the movie, but the book I really enjoyed. But man, the movie All of Us Strangers is so fantastic. If you have not yet watched that, you need to see that because that was an incredible movie. And then Horoscope, this was the basis for Tarot, which got horrible reviews. And yeah, the book, it's a fun time. I had fun reading it, so I guess I'll put it higher for that reason, because I did not have fun reading Twilight or Life of Pi. But yeah, Horoscope, it's just a fun high school murder mystery. There's nothing supernatural about this one, whereas Tarot definitely took the supernatural route. But yeah, so this one was just kind of like a fun high school murder mystery. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, I loved this one too. Put it somewhere around here. Yeah, you should definitely watch that video if you have not already. I think it turned out really well. I loved the movie, I loved the book, and I would highly recommend both of them. Authority, this is the second book in the Southern Reach series, and I like it a lot. So this was my second time reading it. Ooh, maybe I'll put it higher up. Yeah, I wanted to go through and read the whole series again in preparation for the fourth book. And I read the first and the second, but then I never got around to reading the third. And then I still have not yet read Absolution, even though I really want to. I just haven't had as much time for books outside of my book versus movie content. And so I never got around to reading the third and fourth book. I mean, I've read the third book before. I read all three of those in 2021. So I was rereading the first three in preparation for the new one. But yeah, anyway, Authority, I would go in Acquaintance. Time Traveler's Wife. I've heard people praise this book. For example, Cover to Credits is a podcast I absolutely love, and they love The Time Traveler's Wife. So if you want to hear the perspective of someone who really likes this book, you should listen to their book versus movie episode. But I did not like the book. So I guess it was better than Twilight though, so I'll put it up there. But I mean, yeah, the time travel aspect was interesting, but I just think that would have been a better story in the hands of a better writer who was able to really get into the nuances and the complexities, and again, the double-sided manipulation going on, because both characters are kind of manipulating the other. And so that's such an interesting topic to get into, but she doesn't handle it in a sophisticated way, in a nuanced way, and really getting into it. She just deals with it like it's just a romance, and it's all just romantic. So anyway, yeah. Bones and All, I loved this book. I'm going to put it pretty high up because, how high up should I put it though? You know what? I'm putting it up here. I don't care. That book, that was so good. Okay, well maybe, I'll put it right there. I loved the book. I loved the movie. It was really hard to choose which one won in that video. I don't even remember which one I chose now. I think I chose the book, but the movie was really good too. And yeah, you should definitely watch that video if you have not already, because both book and movie were fantastic. It Ends With Us. I actually like this more than some other people. I'll put it right there. I liked it better. This was my second time reading it. I liked it better this time around for some reason. I don't know if it's just where I was emotionally or something, but there were certain things about this book that I think Colleen Hoover wrote about really well. But then also, I mean, she has horrible character development and the romance within it, and just there's a lot to hate on in the book, and yet I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. So I think you should check out my book versus movie if you have not, because I feel like I am fair towards her, right? Like, I'm not just making a video hating on Colleen Hoover and talking about how horrible she is. Like, I'm sharing the things that I liked about the book. And then the movie too, I actually liked, it's not like a 5-star movie by any means, but I was impressed with the adaptation for the most part. So anyway, Arthur, I was not a fan of this one. I mean, it's kind of a cool story. This is the Mark Wahlberg movie, Arthur the King, but I just felt disappointed by this book. I thought it would be just more like inspirational and motivational and just this incredible story. And ultimately, I just felt kind of let down and not as impressed as I wanted to. And then I also don't think he was a very good writer to begin with. And so, yeah, anyway, I'm going in Stranger. Okay, so next up is Call Me By Your Name. And this book was fantastic. Yeah, this book, well, maybe not that high. Maybe I'd put it a bit lower because I did like the movie better, but I loved the book though too. The writing was just so beautiful. And then this one, Oh, Lady in the Lake. I'll put this one in Acquaintance because I liked this one. I was going to do a book versus TV show because they made this into a TV show on Apple. But then I canceled my Apple subscription and I never watched the TV show. So I'm sure it was good. But yeah, I really liked the book. I didn't feel like paying for yet another subscription service. And then also just however many hours I would have to have devoted to the TV show, I just didn't have the time. So I never ended up doing it. But I did really like the book. And then this is Rosemary's Baby, which is fantastic. That's a 5-star book. That was such a great book, such a great movie. And then Dune. So this green one, I don't remember which Dune book is the green Dune book. I think this is God Emperor of Dune. Yeah, okay, so that's God Emperor. I like this one a lot. I will put it, again, it will go up pretty high in Close Friend. These ones, they're not fantasy technically. I guess they're sci-fi, but they still are like that mix of sci-fi and fantasy. And so again, that's not my preferred genre. And yet I ended up reading this is the 4th one. So I read 4 of the Dune books. So clearly I still really enjoyed them despite being so fantasy heavy. Yeah, so God Emperor of Dune was fantastic. I'm tempted to put it higher. Maybe it should go higher. You know what? No, because ultimately, even though I did like it, at the end of the day, it still isn't my preferred type of story. Although, I don't know. I loved how weird it was. Actually, I am going to put it higher. Yeah, because that one was really good. Forget everything I just said. Yeah. You should definitely read this one as you read through the Dune books. I haven't read past God Emperor because I've heard they're not as good after that one. But yeah, that one was good. And this is Dune Messiah, which I liked a lot too. I'll just put that at the bottom of Close Friend. And now this is Children of Dune, which I also really liked. I liked this better than Dune Messiah. I'll just put them right. Well, maybe I like that better than Double Indemnity. I'll just stick it there. Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. I did not like this one as much as the first one. So I would definitely put it in Stranger. Yeah, this one, it was just okay. There was so much going on and yeah, it was just okay. And this is The Wizard of Oz, which I absolutely loved. Now Close Friend, I'm just kind of tossing them in random because I don't know where this one would go, but I liked it a lot. So I don't know. I'll put it here. And this one, again, I don't know what that is. Oh, so that's Dangerous Liaisons, which is fantastic. So that is going very high up here. Yeah, my only complaint, like this would have been probably a 5-star book, but I am not a fan of epistolary novels, and this one is just a collection of letters. And yeah, that's just not my favorite format for a book. And so this, I think it would have been a 5-star book if it was just written in a normal way. But even so, this was fantastic. I had such a good time covering this, watching all of the different adaptations. The TV show was just kind of meh, but the other ones I really enjoyed watching. The Watchers, I did not like this book. Man, I feel like, is that a 1-star book? Probably not, but I really didn't like it, so I'm sticking it down at the very bottom of Stranger. The Weight of Blood, this one was really good. This is a retelling of Carrie, but it was written in 2022, so it's based in current day. Well, it's based in actually like 2014, but the Carrie character is African American, and so it's putting a spin on the story. And also, I'm sure it seems the author was heavily inspired to write this book based on the Black Lives Matters movement and everything with that. And so, yeah, such great commentary in the book. And I thought it was just a great twist on the story of Carrie. So yeah, that is fantastic. And I highly recommend it to anyone who is a fan of Carrie. Into the Wild, I really liked this as well. And I'll just leave it at that. Lapvona. So this one I also really liked. I don't know where I should put it. But end of last year, beginning of this year, I went through all of Ottessa Moshfegh's books. And so and then I made a video sharing my thoughts on all of her books. So Lapvona is her most recent book, and it is her most different. Like, the format is very different from her other works. It also takes place in medieval times. It has multiple perspectives, but it still has a lot of Moshfegh staples. And so I did really like it. And yeah, I love Moshfegh's writing. And then the Michael Richards memoir, aka Kramer. I liked this a lot. I don't remember how many stars I gave it, but I would put it in close friend. I thought it was a really good memoir. And I'm a fan of Seinfeld, so I think too, I was interested to hear what he had to say since I'm a fan of the show. The Wild Robot, that is also going in close friend. I really enjoyed that. Not So Perfect Strangers. I totally forgot about this book until I was getting these images off of Goodreads, and I was like, wow, I barely remember that book. I read it at the start of the year, and clearly it didn't make much of an impression because it's like a twist on Strangers on a Train, but I barely remember it. So maybe I'll put it right here. I'm putting it low, not because it was bad, but just because I'm having a hard time remembering anything about it. And then McLuh, another Ottessa Moshfegh. I will put that in close friend. Night Bitch, my book versus movie for this came out recently. This was my second time reading the book, and I still really liked it. Although my first time reading it, it was a 5-star book. But this time around, I would say it's more of a 4-star book. Perfect Strangers, this one was fine. It's like a fun summer mystery, but it's nothing too crazy. I'll put it in acquaintance. A Simple Favor. This one was very disappointing. I'm going to put that in stranger. So the main character, the Anna Kendrick version in the book, I kept thinking like she has to be smarter, right? Like she has to be just playing a role. This can't be who she really is, and yet it was, and she was just so frustrating and dumb, and just so that was frustrating. But then also certain twists in the story were so obvious, and so I feel like this author is like trying to be like Gillian Flynn or someone like that, but she just wasn't as good. So it was just kind of a disappointing book. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I liked this a lot. I'll put it at the top, near the top of acquaintance. The TV show on Netflix I liked a lot too, and I will be covering season 2. It is confirmed. They are for sure doing a season 2, so I will definitely be following along and reading the other books in the series. And it is a murder mystery, but there's more nuance to it than that, and she does get into some deeper themes, which I really liked. So maybe I would put it higher than Christine. I don't know. I'll stick it there, but yeah, I like that one. What Feasts the Dead. This one was disappointing. I guess I'll put it at the top of Stranger, but this is the sequel to What Moves the Dead, and I loved What Moves the Dead so much. That was fantastic. And yet this one was so disappointing, and I did not like it nearly as much. And also, I'm having a hard time even remembering the details. Like, I remember a couple things, but the fact that I'm having a hard time even remembering it tells you how unimpressive it was. Whereas What Moves the Dead, I read a couple of years ago now, and yet that one I remember so well because it was so good. So What Moves the Dead, highly recommend. I've heard the audiobook is bad, so it's one you should physically read. But yeah, What Feasts the Dead, very disappointing. Having said that, if she writes more books in this series with the main character of Easton, I will continue reading them in hopes that they get better. And then Liane Moriarty, this is her latest book, which I was kind of disappointed by. It was just okay. I'm a huge Moriarty fan. I have read all of her books, and this one definitely is not top tier Moriarty, in my opinion. Mommy Dearest. I'll put this one, ooh, I don't know, that's tough. I'll put it high up in acquaintance. I definitely have my critiques with this, and yet at the same time, it's so hard to critique a book about this because she's documenting the abuse she faced, right? And so I get into the complexities of it in that video. You should definitely check it out if you have not. But yeah, it's written by the daughter of Joan Crawford. So yeah, anyway, I'll put it in acquaintance. And then we have Dark Matter. So the first time I read this, I think I gave it like 4.5, somewhere around there. I really liked it a lot. My second time reading it, I think I would put it lower, but I still did like it a lot. But yeah, I'm really glad I covered that one. I covered the TV show on Apple, and the TV show was fantastic. So yeah, I'll put it in acquaintance. Young Woman in the Sea. I loved this one. I'm going to put it really high up here because this was a fantastic nonfiction book about Trudy Ederle, who was the first woman to swim the English Channel in the 1920s. And that was a huge feat at the time. So it was just a crazy story. It was so impressive, so inspirational, so well researched. And yeah, I loved it. And then Annihilation. I absolutely love this book. This is a 5-star book. It's so good. Like, it has the weird sci-fi horror type of stuff going on. But then I just love the character of the biologist and the relationship with her husband. And so that human aspect is, you know, that's the heart of this story. And it's framed around Area X and all of this crazy sci-fi stuff that's happening. And it's just, I love everything about this book. It is so good. It is so weird. It is so engaging. It draws you in. It makes you feel so connected to the characters, at least the biologist in particular. And it's fantastic. I absolutely love that. You should definitely check out my latest book versus movie. That was my second time covering it because I did it before in 2021, but then I wanted to make an actual video for it. And I was joined by Ink to Film, so you should definitely check that video out. And How to Survive Your Murder. This one was fine. This, kind of like Son of Rosemary, I was enjoying this. It would have been a 3-star book, but then the ending I absolutely hated. So it was already just kind of okay. And then the ending just ruined it. And I really hated the ending of that one. And then we have the Gypsy Rose Blanchard book, the one she published when she was released from jail. I'll put this in acquaintance. Like, it was interesting. And she has said she is going to write a memoir, but I've been seeing a lot of updates on her and what her life has been like since she released this book, because this came out in January. So anyway, I feel bad for her and her situation. I was going to make a video about this book after it came out and just getting into the whole story, but then I never did. But people who write her saying how she's a horrible person for what she did and she's a murderer and everything, and they're seeing it so black and white, right? When it was so much more complicated than that. And her mom clearly had a lot of issues, and it's just such a crazy story and a very sad story. But if she ever does release a memoir, I will definitely read it if it ever comes out. From Under the Truck, this was the Josh Brolin memoir. I'm putting that in Stranger. That was such a disappointment. I had such high expectations because I love Josh Brolin, but then this memoir, he was being very experimental, and I can respect the fact that he is doing something different with this. However, I like the standard memoir format. I don't see anything wrong with that. And so I wish he just kind of told just your normal memoir, right? And I feel like I learned very little about him when I read this book. Like, I got a feel for who he is just by like the vibe of his stories. But I learned like almost nothing because he gives us so few details. And I have a Goodreads review for this, which is kind of lengthy, but so many of his stories are just so random. And they're all just a bunch of non sequiturs. And you're like, why are you telling us this right now? So yeah, anyway, I still love Josh Brolin, but that memoir was pretty disappointing. And then we have Mantis. This one was good. I'll put it above Authority. So I love this author. So it is Kotaro Isaka, who wrote Bullet Train, which I love Bullet Train. That book is so good. And then he also wrote 3 Assassins, which is the prequel to Bullet Train, which I also have a book versus movie for because Japan adapted that one. And so I love both of those books. And so I had very high hopes for Mantis, and I liked it, but I was also kind of disappointed in the end, and there was a reveal that I was hoping would happen, but then it didn't. And so I ultimately was kind of disappointed. Kind of to get into spoilers, but I thought his wife would be a fellow assassin, and I thought that's what it was going towards, and then it didn't. And so then I felt disappointed that it was just like, oh, she was just a normal wife. But I have also wondered if that was the point, like if the author wanted you to think she was a fellow assassin, and so the fact that she isn't is kind of the surprise reveal in some ways, right? So maybe that was the whole point of the book. And so yeah, ultimately I didn't love it, but if you are a fan of Issaka's other books, I think it's still worth reading. So yeah, like this one I enjoyed it, but if you're going to read any of his books, you should definitely read Three Assassins and Bullet Train before bothering with Mantis. Oh, and then Dune. I mean, obviously this is a 5-star book right up there. Delicate Condition, I also love. Horror movie, I liked this a lot too. This is the new Paul Tremblay book, and I would give it 4 stars. I'll stick it right there, just kind of randomly. So yeah, the 5-star, incredible, amazing books I read this year. Delicate Condition, that was my second time reading it, and I loved it. Dune, absolutely incredible, loved it. Had such a great time covering that earlier this year. Annihilation, so weird, so engaging. And again, I felt so connected to the biologist as a character. So you have that character driving the story while all of these bizarre things are happening around her. Rosemary's Baby, that is just, it's an incredible horror story, but then also like you just feel like you are in the shoes of Rosemary. And there was at least one scene in particular that made me want to cry. And it was just absolutely incredible and so weird and unsettling and so horrific what happens to her, but the way it explores also just gender dynamics and how women are viewed. And yeah, that was so good. Ordinary People, this book, it's about a family whose son/brother dies and just the fallout of this. And the movie is absolutely incredible. Mary Tyler Moore, Donald Sutherland, Timothy Hutton. They are just fantastic. This movie is so incredible, but so much of what makes the movie incredible comes right from the book, similar to Rosemary's Baby. And so yeah, this one, it's just so good. And then A Prayer for Owen Meany. This one documents a guy who is friends with someone named Owen Meany. And so he is reflecting on his past with this character. And there is just so much symbolism throughout. And it's very character driven, of course. And then he handles the topic of religion in such a nuanced way. I feel like I'm using that word a lot, but yeah, so you are so invested in these characters and it's also very funny at times, while then also being so sweet and heartbreaking. And then the characters are just fantastic and so fully realized. And it's also kind of a familial story, which again, I really like stories about families and relationships within those families and the dynamics. And then also his mom was such a great character too. I loved her. And it also kind of documents US history too. So yeah, anyway, fantastic book. And then 100 Years of Solitude. This one is incredible. Again, it documents a family through generations, and it's just so beautiful and so weird at times because it has some magical realism, and the writing is incredible, and then the story is just so captivating. And yeah, I loved this one so much. Again, so much symbolism, and it gives you so much to think about. And the characters in my video, I say that a lot of the characters are unlikable. I think I either directly say that or I kind of say something similar, but I wouldn't say that's true. A lot of them do things that you question, or maybe that you aren't a fan of something they did. And yet the author does a great job at showing you what drove them to do that thing, right? Or again, like self-sabotage is a huge theme of the book, and ruining your life and ruining the lives of others. Some of the characters seem to like to do that. But then others, yeah, anyway, you get a feel for just every single character. And yeah, it's just so beautiful. And the ending, this had one of those endings where it made me want to cry, not because something so obviously sad happens, but sometimes this happened too when I finished No Country for Old Men, where the ending was just so powerful. And even though it's not something like, oh, the character died at the end and it made me so sad I cried, this one is more complicated, kind of, where it's just like the effect this entire book had on me. And then the way it ends was just so beautiful and incredible and perfect. And it just, I just felt it so deeply that it made me want to cry by the time I finished this book. So yeah, anyway, it was fantastic. So yeah, I didn't put any in enemy, which is impressive. I guess if I were to be really, really critical, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't give any of these 1 star. So I won't even try to be super, super critical because I have quite a few in the 2-star range, but ultimately I don't think I would give any of them 1 star. So that's pretty impressive. 0 1-star books. So anyway, that is my tier ranking of the 77 books I read this year. If you read any of these, let me know if you disagree or agree with my ranking. And yeah, that wraps it up for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below any 5-star books that you read this year, as well as any 1-star books that you read. And then also, if you are someone who found my channel in 2024, I would love to know what video of mine was the first one you found, which led you to my channel. So go ahead and comment that down below too, because I always find that interesting. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.